rolls of the dice, and next week's budget looms as the biggest yet. It's chock full of spending. The gamble is that, rather than income support, is what drives the economy back to good health. Of course, if it doesn't work, it leaves the government bankrolling both, and for longer. Greg Jennett, ABC News, Canberra.
Uber has won a legal bid to restore its London operating licence, which was taken away last year over safety concerns. Transport authorities refused to grant the ride-hailing business a new licence in 2019 because of what it called a pattern of failures. The American firm has since addressed concerns over insurance verification and driver identification. A judge today ruled that it is a fit and proper operator and that Uber London no longer poses a risk to public safety. All right, let's return to one of our top stories. Donald Trump's tax returns. The US president has brushed off as fake. Reports today in the New York Times that he paid little to no taxes for years. Joining me now is Jared Monshine from Sydney's University's US Study Centre. Jared, quite a report. There's $750 in a year in tax when he was the president. And loans of up to $460 million. Now, this for a $10 billion empire seems to be pretty dubious, doesn't it?
Yes, it is. It does look a bit remarkable, considering he ran as the billionaire candidate, and he really was proud of that and touted that going down his gold-plated escalator in Trump Tower in New York. This is a hallmark of who he is, and it's then all the more not surprising that he did not want to release these tax returns, because it really pokes a hole in that sort of image for him.
But to your point, it's kind of the way he operates. I guess it's no surprise to many people. It's out in the public domain now, even though he denies it. It's not going to impact his base. Who will it sway, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to sway many people. This is the same president who boasted of sexually assaulting women in that Access Hollywood tape, who lauded both sides in the Charlottesville violence in 2017, and then who recently made clear in an interview that he knew very well how dangerous the coronavirus was back in February of this year, but publicly was not forthcoming with that sort of information. So those who really read New York Times exposés, I don't think that they're really in the Trump base. I don't think anyone is really going to be changing their point of view of Donald Trump at this point.
Yeah, but when we look at somebody who has $460 million of loans coming due, who may get a second term as the US president, how critical is it to legislate to ensure that this kind of information should be public knowledge in the future?
That's a great point. Since Richard Nixon in the 70s, basically every president and every presidential candidate has released their tax returns. Joe Biden has done it last year, I believe, and he's done it for many years before then as well. And what's important to note is that they've done that because there was social or political pressure to do so. There's no law whatsoever requiring presidents and presidential candidates to release their tax returns. However, one can hope that this sort of debacle allows or pressures Congress to act and mandate that presidential candidates release their tax returns in order to have more transparency, because that would cut both ways and shouldn't be a partisan issue.
Yeah. Let's move on to his pick for the US Supreme Court. It is devout Catholic Amy Coney Barrett. Now, most polls have shown that they don't want this appointment to be made until after the election, but nothing's going to stop this at this point, is it?
No, it looks like it's all but set to happen. The same Republicans who in 2016 said that an appointment this late in the election cycle shouldn't occur are the same ones saying we'd like to sit this justice as soon as possible. Ultimately, however, what they're doing is completely illegal. There's no constitutional ground for the Democrats to stand on for this. The Republicans had every right, being the majority party in the Senate in 2016, to basically sit on the Obama administration's nominee, and they have every right now in the Trump administration to expedite this nominee.
Let's talk about the balance into the future. It is an interesting one how this operates in the US. This will now be a Supreme Court that is strongly conservative. If the Democrats should win the election, are there steps that they can take to try and redress that imbalance?
Yeah, that's a great point. So, as I said, constitutionally, Democrats do not have much to do right now. But the question is, what do they do if they do win the election in November? If they do, then the Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, has made clear that no options are off the table. So those could be anything from court packing, that is adding more justices to the Supreme Court and therefore diluting the conservative justices. It could be adding new states to the country. So Washington, D.C. or Puerto Rico could be states, and most likely give the Democrats 4 senators right there. It could be an elimination of the filibuster, or it could be introducing term limits to Supreme Court justices. So if the Republicans do this, and it looks like they will be able to do so in terms of seating this justice onto the Supreme Court, then it really is a question of how do the Democrats respond? Because, as I said, Chuck Schumer has made clear that all options are on the table.
Yeah. Jared, we know that Joe Biden is ahead in the polls, but that does not necessarily mean much when we look at the swing states. It's going to be the first presidential debate this week. Is this where Biden could lose ground? He sometimes does stumble in these kind of events.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that when you look at recent presidents going up for re-election in their first debate, they don't usually do too well. So President Obama, back in 2012 against Mitt Romney, he is, I think, widely accepted at this point. He did not do well, and Mitt Romney came better prepared and just looked sounder and more ready to go. With that said, I don't think that we have the same standards for measuring success or failure in a debate with the Trump administration. Back in 2016, when Hillary Clinton debated Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton's supporters came away from that debate thinking they won it soundly, and there's no question. And funnily enough, the Trump supporters came away with a similar conclusion, but about their candidate, saying Trump won it, no question. They were using completely different standards for what success was. For Hillary Clinton, it was to know the issues, not the facts, and to present sound arguments. For Donald Trump, it was to belittle Hillary Clinton and to criticize and ridicule her. And they were both successful in that. And so I think it's in terms of determining whether it's success or not for Biden or Trump, very different standards depending on who the audience is.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch. It might not mean anything in the end. Good to talk, Jared. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, a judge in the United States has temporarily suspended President Trump's executive order to block downloads of the video sharing app TikTok. The order would have banned Apple and Google from offering the app in the US from midnight. Now, a lawyer for TikTok has argued that the ban was unprecedented and irrational. The government is reviewing a deal to secure the US operations of the Chinese-owned app to address security concerns. Well, Dreamworld's parent company, Ardent Leisure, has been fined $3.6 million over the death of 4 people on a ride in 2016. The sentencing followed a harrowing statement from the mother of 2 of the victims.
It's been a long 4 years since the Thunder River Rapids ride tragedy when Cindy Lowe, Kate Goodchild, Luke Dorset and Ruzi Aragi lost their lives. In court today at Southport, finally an outcome. Ardent Leisure convicted for 3 counts of failing to comply with its health and safety duty and slugged with a $3.6 million fine.
Ardent accepts responsibility for this tragedy and fully accepts the court's decision.
Inside the courtroom, Kim Dorset, the mother of 2 of the victims, delivered a heartbreaking victim impact statement. She recounted the moment she saw her granddaughter Ebony Turner, Kate Goodchild's daughter, after being told about the tragedy. Ebony had survived the accident and was hysterical, trying to tell of the events that had taken place that afternoon. "I couldn't find Mummy." These words have become a recurring nightmare, words that will be with me until I too take my last breath.
It is impossible to comprehend how the families feel. and it was heartbreaking to hear their statements today, and my thoughts and prayers are with them.
Work Health and Safety prosecutor Aaron Guilfoyle told the court there was a common theme of failure by Dreamworld, and every person who set foot in the theme park put complete blind trust in the owners. During sentencing, Magistrate Pamela Dowse said Ardent Leisure had demonstrated contrition and a thorough approach to learning from the past. But she said this was a rare case where a penalty close to the maximum was appropriate. The fine, $3.6 million, is below the maximum penalty of $4.5 million, but it's the largest fine in Queensland's history for a workplace incident. Ardent Leisure has 1 month to pay. Jennifer Huxley, ABC News, Gold Coast.
There are hopes South Australia could become a haven for game developers with the introduction of a 10% subsidy for the industry. Gaming is already experiencing a boost during the coronavirus pandemic, and local creators say the investment will provide certainty for jobs and open up new opportunities for young developers.
Pre-pandemic, business was already booming for this Adelaide-based game developer.
We started out off as a team of 3 back in 2017, and since then we've grown to about 24 full-time staff, and most of them are based here in our Adelaide office.
The gaming industry has remained strong through the pandemic, with more people entertaining themselves at home. Local developers are hoping a new state government rebate for production costs means they'll be able to capitalise on a COVID boost.
I think it's going to lead to a lot of job creation in a lot of different areas, from programmers to artists to writers and designers.
The state government says it's the first time a scheme like this has been available for the sector in Australia.
We expect that there will be a snowball effect as companies will move to South Australia and companies that are here will grow.
We're already talking to larger international companies about bringing more development into South Australia, but we're also, it's encouraging us, and we're looking at sort of, what have we got on at the moment and how can we kind of take that a little step further and making them bigger projects.
It comes off the back of the success of a similar rebate for film post-production.
We've seen a 50% increase in the size of the sector and the amount of work that's been generated in South Australia.
Eligible projects will have to spend at least $250,000 in SA to claim the rebate. Game creators optimistic about its impact.
We've been able to grow significantly in the last 5 years, employ more people, more young people especially, keep jobs in South Australia, and so hopefully we'll see more of that continue.
Levelling up the industry. Mahalia Carter, ABC News, Adelaide.
All right, to what in the world? And while some employers may worry that working from home has made it easier for workers to slack off, a group of employees in New York has gone one step further, creating their own man cave underneath the world's biggest train station. An anonymous complaint led to the secret room's discovery underneath Grand Central Station, where the wireman, carpenter foreman and electrical foreman would hang out. The room boasted a wall-mounted television connected to an online streaming service, a fold-out couch and mattress, a microwave and a fridge full of beer. The Metro Transport Authority inspector says it's unclear whether the workers used the room while they were on the clock, though one admitted to having had a copy of the key for at least 5 years. Now, the trio have been suspended without pay until their disciplinary hearings are held. Tonight's top stories on the world. More than a dozen soldiers have been killed on a second day of fighting between Armenia and Azerbaijan over a disputed region. India's coronavirus cases surpassed 6 million, with more than 82,000 infections recorded in a single day. And Uber wins back its London operating licence, which was taken away last year over safety concerns. All right.